Good evening, guys. Welcome to the 64th edition of the Boxing Gossip podcast. Hope everyone's doing well. Monumentous occasion. We have got a podcast really, it's going to lots to discuss, but I guess the most major topic of the evening is obviously going to be this weekend's action, headlined, of course, by Conor McGregor versus Floyd Mayweather. Quick shout out to everyone in the chat who's joined already. Lots of usual names in there. Tetley, Mikey, Stuart, Lewis, Team Groves, Modern Broadcast, Del Boy. Hope everyone's doing well. Evening to Padraig, Wallpaper, Flembot. Hope everyone's doing well. Tonight we got Jay on the panel, we got Jet on the panel, we got Paul on the channel. Irish Tom, believe it or not, is catching a flight to Ireland. The aim is that his flight will land and he will then call in. So hopefully we'll get something from Irish tonight. He's promised me a cameo as an absolute minimum, but hopefully he'll stay on for a little while and we'll be able to get some words of wisdom from Irish Tom. You know, I know some of the doubters are going to think that Irish Tom didn't want to show his face on the podcast tonight after some of the comments that he made last week, and some of the schooling and exposing that he suffered at my hands. But, presumably his excuse about flying to Ireland is legit the truth. So let's get rocking and rolling. And we're going to start straight away by bringing in Jet. And Jet, I'm going to ask you, if I may, about Crawford and Indongo and really what thoughts you have on that matchup and where it leaves us.
Yeah, it was it's sort of cagey in the first sort of round. I think it turned out to be Crawford was the boss in there. Crawford was, he was significantly better, I think, in the fight. And you could kind of tell from, sort of the trajectory going down the rounds that Crawford was by far the better man. And people were giving Indongo a real chance. No names in the chat. But they were giving, Indongo a real chance at the upset, maybe just due to maybe size or something like that and awkwardness. But Crawford, I wasn't really high on him, I'll be honest. And, he's gone through a series of opponents. I don't think he has that one opponent that defines his career, maybe like an Andre Ward or someone like that. Or he has a list of sort of top 5 names in and around the divisions, good names: Yuriorkis Gamboa, Burns, Victor Postol, Indongo, Felix Diaz. The list goes on. We don't have to continue. But obviously he's won all 4 of the belts and he's done what he needed to do. He said he's going to move up to welterweight next. There's some rumours that maybe Errol Spence might be fighting Luis Collazo, so I don't think that fight will be next against Errol Spence. Maybe Jeff Horn, might be in the works. I know him and his team Top Rank, they always go for the WBO version of the belts, and Manny Pacquiao might be a rematch. So there's potential there. Indongo, it's tough to tell because he had such a quick rise with the Troyanovsky knockout and kind of the whitewash of Burns. So it's difficult to tell what stage he's at in his career. He could probably pick up a version of the world title that may be vacated after Crawford, moves up. Crawford versus, I'm not sure if you know him, Sergei Lipinets. He's that's been ordered by the IBF if Crawford stays at 140. So there's obviously options there for Crawford, but I think the lucrative and the sort of sport aspect, is best he goes to 147.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask you about that, Jet. For my money, Crawford, the consensus number 1 fighter at 135, the consensus number 1 fighter at 140. He beat the definite number 2 at the time in the division in Victor Postol. He beat probably the definite number 2 in the division again at the time against Indongo. From a fan perspective, it seems that the matches are at 147. Crawford Furman, Crawford Spence. These are 50-50 matchups. Do you think we're asking too much of Crawford? Do you think he should be allowed, or do you think he'll, he'd be better off having a few routine defences at 140, or realistically, you know, do you think that the money, the opportunity commercially and in terms of publicity is at 147, and that's where he's gonna go?
Yeah, I think from a business standpoint, 147 is probably the option that he's most interested in and looking at most. I think, you know, if you kind of look from his interviews, that he had an interview with Sky Sports, and he said, well, you know, my team will obviously deal with it, but I'm looking to move up in weight, and I think that shows. You know, we're not asking too much of him. I think he asks a lot of himself, if you know what I mean. And he's at that level. He puts himself at that level of the top guys, and he wants to challenge himself constantly. So I think, you know, whether or not he'll beat Errol Spence or not Kell Brook, Keith Thurman, I'm not 100% sure. But you know, those matches are viable. They make a lot of money, or at least for Crawford, they make a lot of money compared to what he's been earning. And yeah, and I think he said he makes 140 easy, but at 147, you know, he could have a few fights, you know, against like Sammy Vargas and, you know, sort of fringe contenders. He's always had, you know, the mandatories or the fights that have kind of been stopgap defenses, such as John Molina Jr. and those sort of fights, you know. But you know, they weren't terrible fights either. Obviously, you expect Crawford to win those fights. But, you know, I think you'll have maybe one or two of them at 147 and jump in with a champion after. Even if he faces someone like an Amir Khan, I'm not 100% sure that would ever happen. But, you know, that sort of level of opponent, that would be, you know, you could kind of gauge how good Crawford will be at the new weight class. He doesn't seem like the biggest guy, even at 140. So it'd be interesting to see how he fares at 147, how he deals with the punches. You know, he has been not rocked, but we've seen him hurt once or twice, maybe in the Gamboa fight as well. So it'd be interesting to see how he deals with like a power puncher, someone like an Errol Spence or someone like that, once he does get in the ring with him.
And yeah, just a word on 140. You know, if Crawford does leave the division, he leaves behind him some very good fighters, but some fighters who are Terence Crawford victims, essentially. Guys like Victor Pistol, guys like Julius Indongo, you know, maybe guys like Felix Diaz, Adrian Broner, potentially even Mikey Garcia if he wants to stay at 140. Do you think we're going to see some good matchups made if those belts become vacant? Do you think we'll see good fighters taking on each other to fight for the vacant belts?
Yeah, I mean, there are some decent sort of fighters. Josh Taylor's in and around there. Obviously, he's got a world ranking now. That, you know, there are good fighters around there. They're not the cream of the cream. You know, they're not pound for pound level fighters or anything like that. But they're very good fighters in their own right. There's some what's his face, Regis Projace. I'm not exactly sure how to say his name, but he's a prospect from America. And you know, there's loads of fighters, so it leaves the option open for a potential vacuum. You know, who just picks up the belts and what belts are available to certain contenders. So yeah, I mean, we'll wait and see. But you know, as I mentioned, Lipinets, he's a pretty decent fighter. He's a power puncher, so he's the mandatory for the IBF. Kirill Relic's around there. Rancis Barthelemy around there. And they're quite high in all the rankings. Josh Taylor, as I mentioned, he's in the top 10 of the WBC. So, yeah, there's a lot of fighters potentially, you know, as you said, the victims, you know, whether or not they're going to come back for sure and win a version of the world title, that's kind of a different, you know, that's a different story. But, yeah, there's some good fighters that are, you know, there or thereabouts, ready to fight for final eliminators. Maybe they're not ready for the world level fights, but they're in and around that sort of contender stage at their career.
Fantastic. All right, cheers for that, mate. We'll bring you back in a little bit. Thanks for that, Paul. Let's go over to you, mate. I assume you watched Crawford and Indongo. Crawford consistently impressive, mate.
Yeah. I mean, it was kind of obvious though, wasn't it? I mean, I really didn't see what everybody was kind of like getting excited about Indongo for, to be honest. That, you know, the Troyanovsky was just, you know, really quick knockout. That can happen to anybody. Ricky Burns is Ricky Burns. You know, with the greatest respect, he's not. He's no world beater, is he? To be honest.
No.
And it was kind of obvious. I thought Indongo just looked shell shocked. I thought he looked very overawed by the occasion, by the fact that it was Terence Crawford that he was in the ring with. He looked very unsure of himself, and the huge gap in class just was evident from the off. And Crawford did what he had to do. He set a trap really well, and Indongo stepped right into it like a goat at the edge of the water that the crocodile's waiting for, and the goat just like merrily continues on into the water, ready to have his head sort of like bitten off. That's what it reminded me of. He just wasn't. Indongo wasn't good enough to be in that ring with Crawford for my money. Crawford. He's cleaned up that division now. But when you actually, I struggle with people that say he's number one pound for pound, and I'll tell you why. Other than Postol, who's he really beat? I mean, got a lot of guys that were quite a bit smaller than him. I think it's high time he moved up. I rate Terence Crawford's skill set. He's a great fighter. When you watch him, I think he's got huge upside. He's very, very versatile. He's, equally comfortable in orthodox and as a southpaw. I actually think he looks better as a southpaw than he does as an orthodox, even though I think he's right-handed and stuff. But I just don't see the pound for pound number one yet. Don't think he's beaten enough high-quality fighters for him to be pound for pound number one. If you look at Postol, a Gamboa, and Gamboa, small guy for Terence Crawford. Let's have it right. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Other than that, he hasn't really beaten many top fighters, but I do think he can be competitive at 147. I think the time is now to move up. While somebody like Thurman is still a name, there's still money in that fight. Spence is coming up. There's some decent fights up there for him. I don't think there's anything more for him at 140. How old is he now? 30? 29, 30, Crawford?
I don't know, mate. I have to give it a look. Actually, bear with me.
I think I want to say he's 30, but
he's 29.
29. So it's a few years left. I'd say move up. Maybe like one or two, sort of like Jet said, fringe guys, and then go for try and get a Thurman fight or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess those are sort of career-defining fights for him. What about the 140-pound division, Paul? Do you see a fighter to come out of this who can, take a lead role in that division, assuming Crawford departs? I don't know if you're one of those who thinks Postol can win belts and unified belts in Crawford's absence, or perhaps it could be someone new, like a Josh Taylor figure.
Well, Lipinets, who Jet mentioned, is good. I've seen him a couple of times. He hasn't fought a very high level of opposition yet, but he does look really good. He looks quite a dangerous puncher as well. I think it's probably going to be him or Josh Taylor. I like Josh Taylor. I think Josh Taylor's got so many tools. I just think he's really good. I think the only sort of like downside of Josh Taylor is the experience. I think he needs more experience. I think it probably will be Postol until somebody like Josh Taylor's ready, and then I can see Josh Taylor taking over that division, to be completely honest. I think Josh Taylor's that good. I really do.
It's a weird division, isn't it? Because a year, 18 months ago, you could have maybe made a case that it was a relatively strong division, I guess. But now Crawford has sort of really beaten a lot of the top contenders. It doesn't look like Mikey Garcia is going to be operating at 140 going forward. Guys like Adrian Broner suddenly look very, very beatable indeed. You know, Pistol and Indongo have both taken bad losses. It's kind of, you know, it's kind of a division that is maybe ripe for someone new like a Josh Taylor to steamroll through, Paul.
Yeah, I do. That's one of the reasons I think so. I don't think it's all that deep anymore, and I just think when I look at that division, if you look at some of the names, you know, like Barthelemy. Barthelемy's a decent fighter, but you know, Broner. I mean, for me, Broner's pretty much done, and I was never a huge Broner fan anyway. There is obviously Postol, there's Felix Diaz, there's Lipinets, but other than that, there's really not anybody. I don't see Mikey Garcia staying there. I think Mikey Garcia is a bit small for 140. I think he only came up for Broner, and so I mean it's maybe somebody new will emerge soon, but I think probably just Josh Taylor in the next couple of years will probably take over.
Let's hope so. All right. Cheers, Paul. Thanks for that, mate. 120 of you guys watching live now. So if you are watching live, please hit the thumbs up button. That will hopefully get this a bit more visibility so more people will join us. Let's bring in Jay. Jay, what would you add to the conversation we're having here on Crawford and Indongo?
I think what I said last week about Crawford being my pound for pound number one, I still stick to it. You know, he's, you know, for the first round, he likes to work out his opponent's first couple of rounds, and then he just goes about his work, and he makes it look so easy. And Indongo could make any fighter look awkward or make a fight look difficult because he is so awkward, and you know, his timing is not great. He swings long. He's got long reach. He's tall. You know, I think Indongo will go on to be a champion again. I think he will retain that championship because I think he's just difficult for any fighter. I never particularly rated him before the fight, and I think when he got the belts, he was at the right place at the right time fighting Ricky Burns. You know, it was quite an easy touch to get the belts there and then to set up for unification with Crawford. But I think he will win a title again. The problem is that Indongo comes up against like a really special fighter, really special, really elite, completely dominates that division, and you know, there is no one in that division, you know, that can touch him. He's head and shoulders above everyone.
Oh, Jay, we're having a bit of sound problems there, mate.
You still hear me?
Yeah. Try again, mate. Yeah, it was all going well, and then it just cut out for a second.
Yeah, so you know, he's head and shoulders above everyone else. You know, I just think now's the time that he does need to move up, and I think even if he moves up to 147, I think he'll win a title at that weight as well. I think he's that good. I think when it comes to having such great ability and being an elite fighter, I don't really think power or size really comes into it. You know, you see many great fighters that can move through the divisions and not necessarily be the biggest in those divisions, but because they're so elite, because their technical ability is so good, their footwork is so good, their skills are so good, it kind of it transcends weight and power. Do you know what I mean? I think Crawford comes in that group, in that bracket.
Yeah,
I think Crawford's big enough for 147 anyway.
I think he is, but I think a lot of people will say that maybe if he comes up against an Errol Spence, who's big, who's strong, who has a good punch, I think he's, you know, people will doubt Crawford can sort of match him. But I just purely think that, you know, like a Pacquiao, like a Mayweather, his natural ability just transcends, you know, the weights completely. And I don't think it really comes into it. I think he's that good.
Yeah. I mean, there's that famous photo of him and Floyd, isn't there, at a basketball game? And he looks massive compared to Floyd. But I guess Floyd and Manny were always fairly small for 147 compared them to the Furman. Jay, I know, look, we're a long way off these fights actually being made. I'm not asking you to make a prediction, but, you know, theoretically, would you see yourself picking a Crawford over a Furman and a Spence? Do you think he could adjust, and his technical ability would get him through fights of that nature?
Yeah, I do. I'd pick him now because as I said, he's that good. You know, people really need to appreciate, you know, how the way he can switch hit, the way his timing is so good that, you know, he drew Indongo in and then just countered him so well. And even at times it looked a bit messy. But I think with Indongo, you're always going to look messy. I don't think there's a fighter he's going to come up against because he makes the fight messy because he's so awkward and ungainly. I think you know, he's going to draw people in like that. But even with someone like that, who I think Indongo, even though he hadn't fought away a lot, he was sort of an unknown entity. He just made him look very, very ordinary, and that's the key. I don't think there's many fighters that would make Indongo look that ordinary. I'm not saying Indongo is a great fighter, but just because of the way he approaches the fight and the style of fighting that he has, he can cause problems. That's why I said I think he'll go on to win a title again because he's just very awkward. I'm not saying he's the best boxer in the world, but just has a really awkward style.
100%. 100%. Jay, let me ask you about the undercard, mate. Did you happen to see Dillian White, for example, fighting Malcolm Tam?
Yeah, I watched that. I mean, there's not much you can take from it, really. American debut had hints of desperation in that fight. He was swinging a bit, went about his work the way he needed to. The only thing I noticed, though, that he looked quite lean. For Dillian White, he looked very lean, a lot. Not heaviest, mate. But his shape looked a lot leaner. I didn't think he looked, you know, the shape of his body. He just looked a little bit more cut from the side. Because I noticed someone said flabby Dillian White, and I honestly thought, from what I saw, he looked maybe heavier, but you can still be heavier and still be leaner. And I think he looked a little bit leaner. And I think the problem is with Dillian White, he spent so much time out of the ring and not getting those big fights. He desperately himself seeks a defining fight, and us as the watching public would like to see him in that defining fight because we don't really know how much he's come on. Obviously, his conditioning is a big thing with him now. Whenever you see him with interviewing, he's always doing some sort of cardio work or some sort of conditioning work. And I think he learned that from the Joshua fight. He won't take Chisora because, you know, who would want to take that fight? That was a hard night's work, and you don't want many of them in your career. So I wouldn't be quick to revisit Chisora. And when he says, you know, well, what has he got for me? Chisora really hasn't got anything for him. If he wants to move up, you know, and challenge for those world titles, there's no reason why he would fight Chisora again. It was a long, hard night. It was a tough fight. And it's not really going to do anything if he beats him again for his career. So really, he needs to seek out that big test. I think that Eddie Hearn put out a tweet on who he'd like to fight next. I think it was right. And I think Helenius was one. Parker was one. Brazil was one. I'm not sure who the other one was. But, you know, everyone voted, you know, unanimously for Parker. So I'd like to see maybe the winner of Fury Parker. I think that would be really interesting, which is a fight that I'm really eager to watch, you know. And we'll talk about it later on the year. But you know, Hughie Fury is someone that can really, you know, lighten up that division, you know, more than it is at the moment.
Yeah, that's an exceptionally exciting fight. I'm very much looking forward to it. Jay, on Dillian White, I've got to say, I thought it was terrible, mate. For a start, I thought Dillian looked really overweight. I believe he was a stone heavier than his last fight, and I thought that really showed. It didn't look like good weight to me either. It was a bizarre fight. He was fighting in front of 50 people against a journeyman opponent. I actually thought, and I watched it on my phone screen, you know, I watched it on an iPhone, so I'm not going to pretend I got crystal clear vision. I actually thought Malcolm Tam countered him a few times. I saw Dillian White over eager, desperate, inaccurate. He did this thing, and it's one of the least favourite things a fighter can do, in my opinion. And I've seen Chisora do it. For you guys who've been watching boxing, Chisora versus Hay. Chisora did it seconds before getting knocked out. Dillian started doing this punch where he literally like throws a punch up and brings it down on an opponent, almost like a hammer. You know, and he was throwing those, you know, he was chopping with punches, he was missing. I thought he looked really, really, really poor. Am I being too harsh, Jay?
I think you have to look at circumstance, really. You know, as I said, he's been calling out these big fights. He's desperate for this big fight. He desperately wants it, and it must be very difficult to fly out to America. You know, fight. You know, you're going from, say, your last fight was Chisora for the thousands of people, one of the best fights that, you know, we could possibly see in the last decade for heavyweight boxing, to go, as you said, he fight in front of 50-odd people, been training like crazy for months, and you've got to fight this guy who you can beat, you know, and sometimes you don't put on your best performances because of either desperation or just really not getting up for the fight, you know. And I think there must be a lot of frustration within him and his camp, and maybe frustration towards Eddie Hearn as well, because, you know, he is under the shadow of Anthony Joshua, which must be very, very frustrating for him. And he's, you know, and he is desperate to get this big fight, and maybe until we, you know, and because we saw in the Chisora when he got hard, when he got into the trenches, he really showed some guts. And same with Joshua, when eventually he lost and pretty much got well beaten, but at times, you know, when he had to dig in, he really dug in, and he really showed a lot of heart. And I think with Dillian White, he needs that fight. He needs that big test to really get him up for it. You know, he needs the crowd. He needs something on the line. I think fights like this, you know, these are the sort of fights that he should be having in the first 10, 15 fights of his career, not now. These are not the fights he should be having. And he probably thinks that himself. He's thinking, why am I fighting this person? But, you know, he has to do it. He has to go through with it, you know, and sometimes he needs more than that. Or our fighter needs more than that. So I think, yeah, maybe we are being a little bit harsh on him.
Absolutely. Just a quick word, Jay, on Bryant Jennings. He returned in a little routine knockout win against Daniel Martz. Good guy to have back in the heavyweight division?
It adds to the numbers, really, but I just don't think. I think, you know, when he first came to our attention, I think there was a lot said about him being quite quick on his feet, quite skillful, quite quick, generally as a heavyweight. But I don't think he can mix it with the top 6, 7 in the world. You know, is he with Al Heyman now? He is, isn't he? Yeah.
I actually think
he's with Top Rank.
Bob Arum, yeah.
So, you know, he's going to get the fights. He's a name, isn't he? You know, he's got some sort of reputation, so he will get a decent fights. But
he'll match him with Parker, mate, if Parker beats Huey.
Yeah, and Parker will beat him. But, you know, I say every week about these levels in heavyweights. You've got your top heavyweights, a certain amount. Then you've got this fringe world European level. And then you've got domestic. But the gap between the fringe world is exactly what it says. It's fringe. And very few fighters will be able to break into that. You hope that maybe someone like Huey Fury can break into that top end world level, you know, because he's got the opportunity to do so. But, you know, you can name them on one hand who the top names are out there. And I don't think anyone at the fringe level at this point in time can really break that hold that those top guys have over the division.
Yeah,
I think Bob Barrett's got this thing with the ESPN now as well, hasn't he? So he's putting on a lot of free to watch shows and stuff. That apparently I know we're going to talk about it in a bit. The Lomachenko Rigondeaux is going to be free to air. This at the weekend was free to air in the US, and so with him being with Bob Arum, it may mean that he gets it quite a bit more exposure as well now. So that might alter things a little bit.
I think possibly any of these fighters can get the fight. The difference is they'll get the fight, but that's the end of it. You know, I don't see them. taking over the division or really challenging? Can you see him challenging, Deontay Wilder, Anthony Joshua? Can you? No, it's then there's different levels, and they're just not at that level. They may get the opportunity to fight them, but they're never going to really succeed as a top heavyweight. You can see that now.
I could see Jennings challenging Deontay Wilder. I think Deontay Wilder's game is so full of holes. He is. I just think anybody with a little bit of quickness and a little bit of slickness and a bit of power could potentially end things for Deontay Wilder. And if you look at Deontay Wilder's career, he's really fought nobody.
I mean, I agree. I agree, but the thing is with Deontay Wilder, we don't really know, how good he is because he hasn't fought anyone, but he's very awkward. He's got a very awkward, he's very rangy. He's a big guy. And again, we need to see him tested, but he's got that equalizer that is very precious, especially in heavyweight boxing. And Brian Jennings hasn't got that equalizer. So if you haven't got that equalizer, you've got to be either very, very skillful, very, very big, or have that knockout punch, which Jennings hasn't got when it comes to the elite level.
I just think when I look at Deontay Wilder, like he was getting outboxed by Arthur Spilker. He came very close to getting beat by Eric Molina. When you look at how easily Anthony Joshua dealt with Eric Molina, Arthur Spilker is not a big guy. He's not, I just think, I would only, I'm not really a gambler and I only bet on things when I'm pretty sure about them. If Deontay Wilder and Brian Jennings was made tomorrow, I would not be putting money on that fight. Even the odds would have to be really, really good for me to bet on Wilder, because I just think he's wide open. I think his defense is awful. I think his balance is awful. I think his technique is awful, and I just think he's an accident waiting to happen, to be completely honest. But there you go. I could be wrong.
No, I think you're right, but I think when he fought Stavern, you saw a different Wilder there. You saw a more disciplined Wilder. When he's disciplined, he can be very effective. It's when he starts to get a bit wild and he starts to lose it a bit and starts to rush his work and starts to, wants that knockout and wants to get rid of a person. That's when the issues are going to happen, But I think if he concentrates on being a bit more, and I'm no Deontay Wilder fan, don't get me wrong, I don't think he's that good myself, but I think he has the attributes that many of the boxers below him don't have.
Well, he's got elite power. He's got quite clearly just fucking ice guy's power. I don't really think he's got a jab. He's got a half decent jab. I think beyond that, I don't think he's got that much. The Stavern performance was his best performance. He did look pretty decent that night, but I just think other than that, he's kind of looked quite average against some quite shitty opponents, to be completely honest.
Yeah, I mean I agree, but I think what always reminds me of Tony Bellew. I watched Tony Bellew and like probably Tom, I bet against him every time he fights.
All of us do, yeah. He looks like he shouldn't do, and he's a big overachiever in boxing.
Yeah, but he seems to pull something out of somewhere, and I'm wondering if Deontay Wilder is one of those fighters. I mean, against Joshua, I think he gets beaten quite comfortably.
Yeah.
I think if he fought Parker, would he beat Parker? I think he would.
I think Povetkin would have beat him.
I think that would have been a good test. Yeah, definitely. 100%.
Because Povetkin can get inside quite well. Povetkin's got decent power as well. And I think anybody that can get inside and can really land on Wilder would be his sort of kryptonite. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, heavyweight division is hotting up, and hopefully we'll get the fights we want to see,
Absolutely, yes. Some big names there. Let's just hope they get it on as time goes by. Guys, I'm going to move it forward to the news in the sport. And one thing I forgot to put on our agenda of topics tonight was the Carl Frampton situation. So shout out to Mikey for raising it to me. But yeah, Frampton has parted ways with the McGuigans. Unclear right now who he's going to sign with, whether it's a deal with Al Heyman and the States or, Eddie Hearn, which seems unlikely in my opinion. Anyone got any reaction to that news or any opinion on the future for Carl Frampton?
He's apparently turned down a deal with Eddie Hearn, hasn't he?
I saw a tweet from Eddie Hearn saying there was no offer made, so there seems to be conflicting reports on that, yeah.
I wonder if he just means like no official offer, but I think where the smoke, there's fire. Beyond that, not really. I like who people sign with and whatnot doesn't really get my pulse racing that much, to be completely honest. So.
Makes sense.
I mean, is it irrelevant if he has a big promoter? We'd have
fight regularly, wouldn't we? And they'd be easy to make matchups like Selby, for example.
Yeah, but many boxers, they go out on their own, don't they? They kind of use a promoter to a certain level, and then they sort of, force a way out on their own. I'm surprised. I'm quite intrigued to see why the split has happened, because they're very close, as a team. I saw video of Frampton being at McGuigan's wedding. So they're obviously very, very close. So it's a bit of an odd one, but I don't know. We'll whether he's just going to start pushing things on his own, and start to take the lion's share of what he thinks he maybe deserves.
Yeah, it probably is a financial thing. It tends to be in these sort of situations, I guess. Okay. What about let's ask Jet as our lower weight classes expert. Rigondeaux versus Lomachenko announced a mouth-watering fight, Jet, I guess, for purist boxing fans.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those fights where the best of the best is fighting. Do I think it will be a good fight? Not necessarily, I'll be fair. I don't think it'll be the greatest in terms of fan appeal. I don't think casuals will sort of buy into it. But for the hardcore, for the purists, they absolutely love this. I think we all, everyone on this panel will be looking forward to the fight. It's in December, obviously, sometime away. But the fight itself shapes up to be, mouth-watering, as you said. It's let's say it's a variance of styles. Rigondeaux is sort of a master at counter punching and that sort of stuff, where Lomachenko is a bit more higher pressure, higher octane, but he's still got some excellent fundamentals as well. So it shapes up to be a fantastic fight. There's going to be other fighters, I know, in between sort of the weight classes. As far as I know, it's going to be at 130 pounds. So it'll be at super featherweight. So Rigondeaux jumps up 2 weight classes. There'll probably be other fighters that may have felt like they've been looked over. Gary Russell Jr., Miguel Bichel, those sort of fighters. They'll probably think, well, I've been waiting around for my big opportunity to face someone like a Lomachenko and prove I'm the number one in the division, or I'm the number one of the best fighters in the world, and I haven't got it. Rigondeaux, you can't blame him for taking it. He obviously needs a big fight. He doesn't generate any money, and good stuff. Best fighting the best, can't complain with that. I'm more than excited to hear the fight's been made and announced.
Yeah, definitely. I did a video on it yesterday, Jet, and maybe I oversimplified it, but I said everything's in Lomachenko's favour. He's the more active fighter, more momentum. He's a lot younger. He's a hell of a lot bigger, and he's got a hell of a lot higher volume. I mean, it just seems that all the advantages are in Lomachenko's favour. Rigondeaux's made a career out of being the technically superior fighter, but but surely he's not going to enjoy the same technical superiority he's done in his career to date against Lomachenko.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that, to be honest. Rigondeaux probably, do you know what? It's difficult to say as well, because we've never seen someone really put it on Rigondeaux and how he's reacted. We all know he's sort of a master of range, but how will he deal with the range in this fight against Lomachenko? We don't know. There's a lot of unanswered sort of questions still, considering this is such a big fight with two Olympic gold medalists with a decorated amateur career. So there are still some questions there to answer, and it will be like a box. I know you said in your video, I did watch it, boxer versus brawler type, but I think they'll be a bit more obviously sophisticated with the skill set they both have. It'll be a bit more technical and a bit more sort of cautious, I think, maybe in the early rounds, and Lomachenko might start to pick it up in the start of the mid to late rounds. I wouldn't be surprised to see a Lomachenko late stoppage or a points victory. Rigondeaux has been hurting his, in a few fights. Amagasa, I know he was bigger, and I think he is quite small compared to Lomachenko. So, the height will play a dynamic. The weight will play a dynamic, especially for Rigondeaux. He's very small at super bantamweight, and I think I've said it numerous times on your channel as well. I think he's more of a bantamweight, to be honest. He's very, very small in size and stature. So, interesting to see if he bulks up and how he does the weight and that sort of stuff. There's a lot of questions, as I said before. So, it's heating up to be good already. Let's put it that way, and we're around 3-4 months away. So, let's look forward to it.
Absolutely. Paul, Jay, any comment on that fight?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I don't know how competitive it'll actually be, though. I think if Rigondeaux and Lomachenko were the same size, it might be slightly different, because I think for his size, I think Rigo has more power, and then there would be the sort of like question of can he maybe knock Lomachenko out. I think if Orlando Salido can't knock out Lomachenko, I don't think Rigondeaux can. Problem with Rigondeaux is he's just a sniper, isn't he? He's a long range sniper. He's a counterpuncher. He can't fight on the inside at all. The one time I ever saw him trying to fight on the inside was quite a bit earlier in his career against a guy called Ricardo Cordoba, and Rigondeaux tried to get inside and just got dropped. As Jet mentioned, he's been dropped a couple of times. Amagasa, I think, did Donaire drop him as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. And if I just think, even if they were the same size, I'd still be saying sort of like maybe the power might come into it. I still think, I think Lomachenko is a level above even Rigondeaux. Rigondeaux's a great fighter, but I think Lomachenko's a level above even him. If you look at sort of like Rigondeaux versus Donaire, and then you look at Walters Donaire, those were all competitive fights. And then if you look at the way Lomachenko dealt with Walters, Walters hardly landed a glove on him and got not I wouldn't say a hiding. Some people talk about that fight and say, oh, Lomachenko gave him a hiding. I don't think he did give him a hiding. I think he gave him a little bit of a beating, but what he did more than anything was he took his soul, and that seems to be what Lomachenko does. This is 3 fights in a row now. I know Mariaga wasn't a world beater. Mariaga, actually, a lot of people don't know, was a backup for Orlando Salido. Orlando Salido was offered what would have been his career high payday, $800,000 for the rematch, and turned it down. So can't really criticize him for that. But the last three guys that have got in the ring with Lomachenko have all either quit or have been stopped in a stall. I just think too big, too young. Rigo can't fight on the inside. Lomachenko is superb on the inside. You know, he's a fucking magician on the inside. 1 minute he's there, the next minute he teleports over to the other side. Yeah, or it must seem like that when you're in the ring with him. You know, I personally think if you look at skill set, he's above and beyond anybody else in boxing right now. Lomachenko, I just think he's the best fighter in the world right now for me. Yeah, so I'm kind of looking forward to it because, you know, they're obviously closer to each other than some of the other people he's been fighting and stuff, and so from that perspective, I guess there's a bit of an unknown entity, but I just think it's probably going to be quite a big win, a substantial win for Loma. Yeah.
Okay, good stuff. Cheers for that, Paul. I think Lomachenko seems to be the consensus pick in this fight. I did see one online poll which had over 80% of people voting for Lomachenko. So maybe it's not necessarily a fight that the public are considering as competitive, but nevertheless, you know, good to see two guys so high up on many people's pound-for-pound list clashing, and good to see two guys in lower weight classes in a fight that's going to generate some extra interest, I guess.
I think Rigondeaux kind of has to take the fight, doesn't he? You know, what is he, 38, 39? That's even, if you can even put any stock into how old...
He's listed as 36, mate.
Oh, is he 36? Okay, yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a chance he's probably older than that, but whatever. Even at 36, it's kind of like, he hasn't got a dance partner at Super Bantam, has he? He's like, who's he going to fight? Like, everybody's either kind of like, there's just going to be no money in the fight, or they don't want to get in the ring with him. So he kind of has to take it. I think the only reason Lomachenko's probably taken it is, you know, Rigo is the person that even Conor McGregor in a recent interview said, "Oh, I want to see him fight Rigo." So, like, I know a lot of people are kind of like saying, "Why don't you fight Rigo?" and this, that, and the other. And I think, you know, that's probably the only reason he's taking this fight, to be completely honest.
Yeah. I guess from Lomachenko's perspective, you know, you never know. It could be a disaster, but it could turn out to be sensible matchmaking. It's a big name, especially amongst the boxing hardcore. It's a legacy-defining fight. You know, people may not remember the weight difference in 10, 20 years' time. And it's a guy who's potentially on his way down. He's old, inactive, he's small. You know, we'll see. Perhaps it will be a disaster, but interesting fight. Guys, does anyone else have anything more to add, or so we turn conversation towards McGregor-Mayweather?
I want to hear what Jay's got to say, because I thought Jay's a Lomachenko fan, surely. Jay's got.
Yeah, I think it's just it's a good fight, like it's a good trade fight as such, but you know, Rigo's been out, you know, inactivity, size. The only thing that really interests me is how Lomachenko, you know, how he deals with that opponent, how he deals with that style, because usually he's got someone trying to come for him a bit more. Rigo kind of likes to sit back a little bit, likes to counter. Although in his latter fights, he's tried to make it more explosive and come forward a bit, obviously trying to push his name forward. I think what Paul said is right. Rigo, it's like a roll of the dice for Rigondeaux, because he's not getting those fights and he's coming to the end of the career and he needs those fights, and he probably thinks, well, if I beat him, this is going to step me up a little bit and maybe open more doors for me. So, you know, I think that's his reasoning, and Lomachenko's reasoning for it is purely, you know, it's another name on the list, and he's an unbeaten. Well, he's only lost once, but he's seen as a pound for pound fighter. So, you know, for him, I think it's a very good calculated risk, and for me, Russell wins all day, every day.
You're getting a lot of stick for calling it a trade fight, mate.
Well, when I say trade fight, I mean a fight for the hardcore fans. That's what I mean. It's a fight for the hardcore fans. Ask anyone on the street, and they're not going to know who the hell Rigondeaux is, are they? They're not going to have a clue. So what I mean by that, before anyone starts slating me in comments, is that it's a fight. It's a fight for boxing purists. There you go. To make it perfectly clear for you.
All right, cheers, mate. Jay, let's stick with you. We'll move it on to the meat within the sandwich. Floyd versus Conor McGregor. The first bell rings. What happens?
Good question. Conor McGregor does his flimsy arm thing. He dances about a little bit. There's a little bit of dancing around to and fro. Maybe some talking. Maybe, abusing each other. Very little shown, and then by the second round, Floyd just starts to take over and starts to box his head off. Although it could go where McGregor just jumps on him and does something crazy and tries to maybe watch Madonna fighting, and maybe he's taken some inspiration from that, and he's just going to try and jump on him and smother his work. That's all I can see that's happening. It's intriguing, but as a spectacle, and I hate to say, but I'm quite interested to see how that first round goes.
Yeah, I think a lot of the chat, especially from the McGregor MMA type fans, seem to be that Conor's going to really stick it on Floyd from the first round. He's going to bring immense volume. He's going to be a lot younger, fitter, stronger, bigger. He's going to bring a lot of power, and I think a lot of people think that may cause Floyd problems, but I wonder if those people have watched, the times before when Floyd has fought substantially bigger men like Oscar De La Hoya, men like Canelo Alvarez, and when he's fought guys like Marcus Maidana, who are also unorthodox guys who throw punches from strange angles and like to apply a huge amount of pressure as well. So, I guess my sort of question is that, if those sort of guys failed to beat Floyd using those techniques and adopting that approach, how will a guy who's so new to the sport be able to do it? I watched a video just now, actually, that Dwyer had done, where he kind of suggested that Conor McGregor should look to be a low-volume guy. He shouldn't allow Floyd Mayweather to counterpunch him, and instead he should be low-volume and make Floyd Mayweather lead and acknowledge that he's got a puncher's chance in the fight, and rather than trying to outpoint Floyd, rather than trying to win rounds against Floyd, just look for gaps to land that money punch. I mean, what do you make of that, Jay? Sorry.
I think it will go through all of those things at some point in the fight. I think he'll try everything until he gets frustrated. So he might start off just sitting back and waiting. Then he's going to start to get frustrated by it. Then he's going to start trying to put it on him, and then he's going to get frustrated by that. He's going to go through plan A, plan B, plan C, but none of them are going to work. It's just not possible. He could have any tactic, any technique that he wants. He's not going to get near him, and I will 100% say that. It's just I watched the interview with Johnny Nelson. And Johnny Nelson, being the Sky mascot that he is, for obvious reasons, because they pay his wages. But, he talks about Mayweather and McGregor and saying, Mayweather and McGregor has some sort of chance. It's ridiculous to say that he hasn't, which I don't subscribe to. And he's saying, well, you've got Mayweather, who's been out for 2 years. He's 40 years old. He won't have the time, and it's just natural aging. He won't have the speed. All this bullshit that I was just pulling my hair out, because if I remember rightly, Johnny Nelson did say that he was going to fight, was it Marius Wack? Was it?
Marco Huck.
Marco Huck, that's right. He was going to fight Marco Huck and said he would whip his ass, even though he'd been out the ring over 10 years, and he would still whip his ass because he's just so much better. It's just absolute bullshit. They're grasping at straws, trying anything to try and show that this fight is competitive at all, and it isn't. So forget it. No matter what he tries, he can watch as many tapes as he likes. People are just... just get into your head, people, that he's never had a professional boxing match. It's ridiculous. Say, we talked about Lomachenko. He lost in his second fight because he just wasn't ready for the professional game. You know, it was very close, but he just wasn't, you know, attuned to the professional game. And this is a guy that was like an outstanding amateur. So, and this was against Salido. So how is Conor McGregor going to, with never having a boxing match, never having amateur experience, going to fight probably the best fighter in the last generation? You know, if you really sit down and think about it, you know, it's easy to fall into the hype. I understand it because I've done it for other fights, but this, I just can't do it.
Yeah, I mean, they've gone to extreme lengths to sell the fight. We've had the Malignaggi saga. We've had Floyd saying his body can't take it anymore. We've had Floyd saying he's too old. He's not the same fighter he once was.
Yeah.
Rumours that Zab Judah knocked out Floyd in sparring. Floyd's done several all-access programs, which he's laboured the point that he's not actually really training for the fight and he's more interested in partying and building strip clubs. But you're right, Jay. If you remove yourself from the hype for 1 second, the gap here is surely just too vast.
Well, this is a familiar story because, you know, Johnny Nelson again said that Floyd Mayweather was out at strip clubs and partying. He's always done that. He's been doing that for years. What he'll do, he'll go out at because he's very nocturnal. So he'll go out at I don't know, 10 o'clock in the evening. He doesn't drink or anything like that. He'll stay in a club till 3 o'clock in the morning. Then he'll run home. You know, he'll do an hour's jog all the way home. This is what he does. He always does that, and people should remember this. You know, there's been, if you've watched him on a 24/7 all access in past fights, you've seen him coming out of a club, getting his kit, getting his trainers from his limo, and jogging home. I mean, you know, it's just sort of what he does. But he's a businessman, and he's a PT Barnum. He likes to attract the attention and build hype, which generates more money. It's as simple as that. So it's farcical. And if Zab Judah knocked out Floyd Mayweather, if you had McGregor versus Zab Judah, who do you think would win? I pretty much think Zab Judah, even at this stage, would beat McGregor.
Yeah, I'd agree. And I think you're absolutely spot on about the point you make about Floyd's conditioning. Don't know if you've seen the photos of Floyd's physical shape, but he's in astronomically tremendous physical condition for any man, let alone a man of 40. And he's clearly not going out on the beer and burger, let's put it that way, because you just wouldn't be in that good a shape. So, yeah, he's doing the strip club thing. Jay's spot on, but you know, that shouldn't suggest that he isn't doing his normal training behind the scenes, I think.
He's one of those boxers that never comes out of shape. It's like Carl Froch. Carl Froch is probably still pretty much the same weight, fighting weight, that he would be, and still an awesomely fit geezer for his age. And you know, he's not a Ricky Hatton that just goes, right, fuck it, I've been doing this for so long now, I can't be bothered to do it anymore. He's just not like that. He's probably very conscious of the way he looks, you know, and he's very a proud guy that likes to look good all the time. And he would, I doubt at any point when he was out of boxing that he really was not far off his fighting weight. You know, he probably walks around pretty much not far off it. So, you know, that is not an issue for him. You know, I'll imagine he's been, and plus he's known about this fight for a very, very long time, longer than we knew about it. So, you know, I would imagine he's been ticking over, you know, and really intensifying in the last probably 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah, and often that's how it works. The fighters who have huge career longevity. You know, if you look at Vladimir Klitschko, if you look at Bernard Hopkins, if you look at Floyd, these aren't guys who are blowing up 2-3 stone between fights like a Billy Joe Saunders or a Tyson Fury is. These aren't guys who are, you know, going out on the Guinness like a Ricky Hatton was. You know, it's kind of, if you live in that Spartan lifestyle, it creates that longevity. And therefore, whilst Floyd is 40, he's a much younger 40 than most people, I guess.
Well, he's never had the tough fights either. He's not been bashed around the ring by anyone, so that's not really affected him. As you said, he's physically tip top, and as you said, there are fighters that like the gym, that just generally love exercise and conditioning, you know. And there's fighters that don't, you know. We've seen it, as you said, with Ricky Hatton, Billy Joe Saunders, even Marcus Madonna. You know, if you see pictures of him now, the guy's huge. The guy is huge, but he obviously hated training and he hated having to eat such and such. And plus, people's body types are very different. Some people naturally put on weight very quickly. Some people naturally don't, you know, and he's probably got the genes and the physicality to keep at a decent weight. And, you know, and he owns his own gym. He's probably there regular, you know. So, you know, as far as conditioning and the age thing goes, I don't think Conor McGregor has the one-upmanship on that at all. You know, even though he's, you know, fantastically fit, but it's not going to be enough.
100%. Jet, let's bring you back in, mate. Obviously, you've heard the discussion just then. How do you think the fight will play out stylistically? What sort of approach is Conor going to take in this fight?
Yeah, well, I've always kind of said that Conor McGregor, especially in MMA, if you watch his MMA fights, because I keep up to date with MMA, if you watch his fights, he's not a brawler. He doesn't come forward and put the pressure on. He's a counterpuncher, so he takes his time. If you watch the Nate Diaz fight, he did that. Obviously, we didn't get to see too much into the Aldo fight. That was another quick knockout. But, you know, if you kind of see his traditional style, he obviously has that large sort of leg stance, very wide, and he kind of just circles around the octagon and looks and picks his shots well. So, you know, what you were saying about Johnny Nelson, I wouldn't say that wouldn't go too much amiss. But even Floyd coming on the front foot, he's very smart. He'll come forward, he'll hold the center of the ring, and he'll make Conor try and make a mistake. And, you know, if you're trying to counterpunch the best counterpuncher of this generation, and not even the best counterpuncher, the best fighter of this generation, and he hasn't really fought in a boxing ring, you know, it kind of, the writing's on the wall there. I mean, you know, it's going to be very, very difficult if he's going to try and box with Floyd, because Floyd, for every flaw that Conor would have in the fight, just from a pure boxing standpoint, you know, Floyd will just pick up on that. You know, Conor's not going to be able to, you know, move how he would normally be able to move. I know they always have 5 minutes in championship fights in UFC, and obviously it's 3 in boxing. But, you know, if he does go the distance, how drained would he be in the fight as well? He does seem to get tired. Obviously, he's a big guy, even at, you know, 154. I know this fight is at, he normally fights at 155 lightweight for UFC. So, you know, he still does cut a lot of weight at featherweight. He was cutting a lot of weight for UFC 145. So, you know, that will play a factor. I think it'll play more of a factor than his team and himself think in the fight. You know, the height's obviously there, but Floyd's dealt with taller opponents, and, you know, people will come forward. He's dealt with pretty much every single style that you could throw at him. So, yeah, I just don't see how Conor McGregor, like, with all due respect, he's an entertaining character. He's a funny bloke. I give him that. But is he really going to beat Floyd? I don't think so. It's, you know, sorry to burst your bubble, Paul, but, you know, I just don't think he's going to be too much of a problem for thing.
Fuck you, bursting my bubble, man.
Sorry, man. Sorry, I just had to throw that one in there. Don't worry. If McGregor wins, we'll all be laughing here.
There's a fair debate as to method of victory. I did notice you can get almost 3-1 with the bookmakers on Floyd to win on points. So the consensus is that Floyd should win by knockout. Now, I've seen some people saying this is ridiculous. Floyd isn't a puncher. McGregor's a big, strong man. You know, I've seen other people saying McGregor may be very vulnerable to Floyd's bodywork. McGregor's going to be eating so much leather he may have to quit, etc. Where do you stand on that debate, Jet, as to whether it's, assuming Floyd wins, whether it's a KO or points?
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because I do see both sides of the camp for a Floyd win. You know, a KO, a TKO, or a stoppage. Sorry, or a points win. But you know, it's I think Floyd will win on points. I know he said he's going for the knockout, and this fight's not going the distance and whatnot. But I wouldn't believe too much into it. You know, he said a lot of things in the past, and it turns out not to be true. But yeah, I would think he's going to win on points. I saw 3.75 to 1 for Mayweather just to win. I don't know what it was on. I think it was on Betfair, but that was a week or two ago. I'd wait till the night of the fight and see what odds you can get on that. But yeah, I'd probably go for a points win. I wouldn't be surprised at a late stoppage if Conor is tired, but I think he's you know, it depends what sort of what ref is in there, how they're going to off Robert Bird. So I'm not obviously familiar on referee work and that sort of stuff, but if he's a bit more hesitant, like Howard Foster, he might step in early or something like that. We don't know, but yeah, I'd say points probably very wide.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, it's did you say you saw 3.75 on what was that on Floyd to win on points? Was that
Floyd just to win? I don't know what it was on though. I don't know where it was. Yeah. I'll try and track it down and
maybe it's like a special offer. Like if you open a new account, you'll get that price or something. But,
yeah, probably just create a new account. But I would basically 4 to 1. I would take that for Floyd to win.
Yeah, Floyd will be about 1 to 4 to win, so you'd have to put on about £4 to win a pound. Yeah. But yeah, I'm sure there are
4 to 1 almost is free money, isn't it? Even if you're a small gambler, that's free money. You put a tenner on and win, you know, a couple of quid, it'll be decent. But yeah, if I can track it down, I'll email it to you. Let me see if I can find it.
Cheers, man. All right, Paul, let's go over to you. Paul, obviously, famously a podcast or two ago, was fairly, you know, he wasn't so dismissive of Conor McGregor's chances. Let's put it that way. So, Paul, as you've seen the build-up, how has your thought process, you know, developed?
I mean, you know, like I stand by what I said that day. I think to say he's got no chance whatsoever is kind of a bit ridiculous. He is a guy that has been fighting all his life and is a guy that is best with his fists standing up. It's not like he's a Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy that, you know, usually wrestles around on the floor and whatnot. So I think that they're closer than, say, him and somebody like Nate Diaz would be. You know, the more I see this, you know what, I've got to admit, I have been fucking tracked into this fucking hype. I fucking hate myself for it. I hate that I have been, but I have been. You watch the sort of like press conferences and that, and you watch like, you know, Floyd saying, the Pacquiao fight wasn't, you know, the fans didn't like it. I'm going to give the fans what they want. I'm not going to take a backward step. I'm going to come forward for him. And I just wonder whether, yeah, I know Jet says that's probably all games and whatnot. And yeah, maybe. I just wonder whether his ego, because as we know, there's one thing nobody can say. Nobody can deny Floyd has a huge fucking ego. It's in everything he does. It's in every move he makes. It's clear. Yeah. I just wonder whether he just thinks, you know, how dare you come in your first fight and not only challenge me, but kind of like be so blasé about how certain you are you're going to beat me and how certain you are you're going to knock me out and whatnot. And I just wonder, you know, if you look at the concessions he gave with the 8-ounce gloves, he's actually got the governing body, the Vegas Commission to actually change their rules, because, you know, their rules state that no less than 10-ounce gloves. Now all of a sudden we've got 8-ounce gloves because McGregor was saying, you know, I'll fight you in less. I think Floyd's saving face, Floyd's ego, is a big part of the reasoning why he does a few things. I don't think it's all just hype, because I don't understand how you explain something like the 8-ounce gloves thing if it's just all about hype. I really think that that may make a difference if he just sort of like comes to Conor McGregor, and McGregor can catch him. It's uncertain. Having said that, the more I see of like when they released the extra bits of footage from the Malignaggi spar and some of Conor's bag work and stuff, that kind of made me go, fucking hell, man. Do you know what I mean? He doesn't look good. Let's be honest. He doesn't look good. You know, the fact that they're talking about the 12th round in the Malignaggi spar, and he didn't knock Malignaggi out, kind of like makes you wonder as well. And so, you know, the smart money is obviously on Floyd. The chances are it will be a Floyd win. I just wouldn't be at all surprised if McGregor knocked him out. I just wouldn't. He's a much bigger guy. He's a guy that clearly carries.
Oh, no, Paul, stop, man. Please, I can't listen to it. I can't.
I'm done. I'm finished, mate. I should just sign out, man.
If Floyd Mayweather built his career on safety first, at least the latter part of his career, if you think he's doing it for his pride, but he's doing it for money, that's all he's doing it for. He's come out because he loves money. He's come out for the money. And he's not doing it for pride, thinking you're not going to come in here and say that he don't care about that. All he cares about is getting the W, and then he'll still be able to say, I still won, I've still got X amount of money. He don't care if it goes 1 round, 2 rounds, 12 rounds, as long as he wins. He's not going to come out brawling.
If he doesn't care about pride and that, and Conor's not getting into his head and stuff, why did he concede the 8-ounce gloves thing? Why?
Because he knows it's easy work. He knows
I'm done. I'm finished. I should sign out now.
He knows it's easy work. But as I said, Mayweather is safety first. He would not do anything that he thinks was going to jeopardise him losing that zero.
If he runs away the whole fucking fight, he's going to look like such a cunt now then, because he's
don't give a shit.
I don't know about that, mate.
He don't give a shit because he'll just say, I won and I've got another 100 million. His answer to that is, I've got 100 million. Okay. That's all he'll say.
Okay. I think the thing is, Mayweather's been here before, hasn't he? I mean, the Pacquiao fight, probably the biggest selling fight of all time, and yeah, he got accused of that running there. Berto, his supposed retirement fight, he kind of ran for the last round. I think the gloves thing, I kind of see the gloves thing as a bit of a red herring. I think the gloves thing has been made out to be a bigger story than it actually is. Floyd actually normally fights in 8-ounce gloves at 147, and for me, Conor's so unlikely to be hitting Floyd with regularity that having smaller gloves is actually an advantage for Floyd, because Floyd's the one who's going to be doing the landing. So McGregor's going to be the one eating the punches with the smaller gloves. Paul, is there part of you that,
Paul thinks McGregor's actually going to KO Mayweather? I don't know why you're asking him, Gossip.
But what I'm getting at is part of your reasoning like a conspiracy reasoning that, if McGregor KOs Floyd, there's a huge amount of money in the rematch. Is that feeding into your logic, Paul, or do you just legit think?
Yeah, no, that's part of it. That's part of it. The thing is, you just don't know how much of any of this that you're seeing is kind of choreographed by them all. It makes me laugh with people, fucking these guys in the chat are getting so fucking upset about it, man. It's an opinion on a boxing match, man. Chill out, for fuck's sake. Like, some of them are getting proper upset.
Hashtag fire Paul.
Oh, my God. Well,
Paul, are you trolling?
Well, maybe I'm trolling. We'll see.
You gotta have
maybe they've got me
out, man.
Bro, you never know. They might have got.
You gotta have some sort of a 5-step plan. Let me talk.
It's the Irish takeover.
You're on this payroll, aren't you?
It's the Irish takeover. Conor McGregor, #1 pound for pound within 18 months. And the other Irish fighters will be following shortly afterwards. We've got Carl Frampton in on it, the whole fucking shebang. Don't you worry.
God.
Well, why is it though? What I'm getting at is, you know your boxing. You know that Floyd's fought younger men before. He's fought bigger men before. He's fought bigger punchers before. This is nothing new. What is new is a guy who's never boxed making his debut in a 12-round fight. So what I'm getting at is, why is Floyd?
If I can make a couple of points, right. One, he's never done it at 40, with having been out the ring for 2 years. Right, that's the first thing. The second thing is, he's never done it against a guy that is coming from a completely different discipline. Therefore, his stance will be different. The way he throws punches will be different, right? Those 2 points are points that make it different. The second point here is, some people think Maidana won that first fight. The first Castillo fight, I think you'll be hard pushed, other than sort of like real hardcore fucking Floyd fans, for anybody to say Floyd won that fight. That first Castillo fight, he lost that fight. So, it's not like he's invincible. Let's be honest. And the guy's nearly 40. So all I'm saying is, of course, the chances are Floyd's going to win the fight. But, let's not kid ourselves here. This is a fucking fight between 2 human beings, man.
No, because it's...
Oh
God! It's not like a punch up in the car park. There's skill to this. There's a method to this. It's not just like you hit me, I hit you. You hit me, I hit you. It's not. Is it? He's got to actually connect. Like for instance, right? Let me ask you this: would Glenn Foote of Sunderland, 19-1 in the British rankings, beat Lomachenko?
Would you?
Would Glenn Foote of Sunderland, 19-1, beat Lomachenko?
I don't know who Glenn Foote is, but probably not.
Exactly. This is what I'm saying. He wouldn't. You've never even heard of him, and he's had 19 fights, and he would never get near Lomachenko. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
You wouldn't. If this was anyone else, you would not bet. You would not bet. You would not bet for him.
I'm not. This is what none of you seem to get, and I'm not betting for him or saying he's going to win. I'm saying to say he's got no chance whatsoever is ridiculous.
He hasn't.
Well, there you go. That's my opinion. I think it's ridiculous to say he's got no chance.
It's okay, Paul. We know you're picking McGregor. Don't worry.
McGregor. This is what I said last time we had this. McGregor has a chance, but he has a chance in the same sense that any man has a chance. Floyd will come out. Floyd will throw a few punches. I don't know. Floyd could throw a jab that breaks Floyd's hand and arm. McGregor could throw out something that cuts Floyd hideously, and I don't know. One of the light fittings could come loose and land on Floyd mid combination. I mean, he's got a chance in the same sense that any fighter has a chance. But I certainly wouldn't see. McGregor having any more than a sort of act of God chance, if that makes sense.
Well, I mean, the thing is, you're saying he has as much of a chance as any man has a chance. I think the fact that he is a professional fighter of some sort means that he's got more of a chance. Like, the guy that works in an office that's never had a fight in his life surely has less of a chance. And if you're saying any man has a chance, then surely you must concede that to say McGregor, who is a professional MMA fighter, has no chance, is ridiculous. Which is all I was saying to start with. You've kind of conceded my point, really, in just exactly what you're saying.
But the way I look at it, Paul, okay, let's say there's a 100-meter race between Usain Bolt, a 12-second 100-meter runner, and me, who's maybe a 14-second 100-meter runner.
14 seconds. Come on, can you prove that, Tom?
Completely
Come on.
Great analogy, because there's hardly any elements involved in a run. You're in a lane and you run from one end to the other. A fight, a boxing match, there's so many different elements to something like that.
Okay. So what about someone like Gary Cornish against Anthony Joshua, which we saw? Did we think Gary Cornish would have any chance of beating Anthony Joshua?
Well, no, but he did have a chance. Of course.
He didn't. He wasn't even in the fight. He couldn't even get near him. That eliminates any chance that he had. The only chance he'd have is if Anthony Joshua put his hands behind his back and said, "Hit me in the face." That's the chance he has.
We know that now, but mate, listen.
And it's the same. It's the same with McGregor and Mayweather. If Mayweather comes out and crosses his arms or puts his hands behind his back and says, "Punch me in the face as hard as you can," that's the chance he has. But that's not going to happen, which in turn means he's got no chance of winning.
But are we actually arguing here? Just so I understand, are we arguing over Paul thinking he's got a 0.0001% chance and me thinking he's got a 0% chance? Or is it more substantial than that? I mean, Paul, I know it's hard to say. If Conor fought Floyd 100 times, do you think Conor wins 10 of them?
No. I'm not saying he's got much of a chance. I'm not saying I'm picking it. I'm saying there is a chance he could knock him out, and it's as simple as that. And I think that's just logical. It's absolutely logical.
Are you sure? You said, oh, mate, I have nothing to say to this. This is a new low.
Yes, he has a chance of knocking him out if he puts.
I've accepted Paul is going to pick McGregor to win, and he thinks he's the best in boxing. I've accepted it now.
I don't think you want it. I think he thinks he's going to win, but the fact that you think he's actually got a chance of winning, you're trying to say he's got to hit him clean on the chin. So do you really think Mayweather would allow Conor McGregor, of all the people that he's fought, to hit him clean on the chin and knock him out when no one else has been able to do it?
Come next week, after he's made him his fastest ever knockout, you're all going to be eating humble pie.
You're insane. You're insane. You need a suspension from this podcast.
Paul, just out of interest, do you see some sort of, do you see, I don't know, Floyd getting into a hold with Conor and Conor be able to land a hook or an uppercut? I mean, do you kind of have a vision of how Conor could position himself into this scenario, or is it more general than that?
No, it's more general. Mate, what I'm saying is, I'm pretty sure I've been quite clear, but I'll say it again. What I'm saying is, like, two guys that have been trained to fight, that do know how to strike each other, there is always a chance that one of them could knock the other one out.
How do we know he's got the knockout power?
It's not like Floyd's never been hit. It's not like he hasn't been dropped.
Well, I mean, Floyd's got the one knockdown against Floyd is the one against Zab Judah that wasn't called, if I'm not mistaken.
It was a knockdown. It was a knockdown. Shane Mosley fucking caught him nicely. I mean, like,
Floyd's got a good chin, though. To be fair to him, he's got a very good chin.
How do we know that Conor McGregor's got knockout power? Would you think he can knock someone out in one punch? What makes everyone think that he's a super knockout artist?
I don't believe Conor McGregor's got legit power.
So that means it could take 3, 4, 5 punches to knock Mayweather out. Is he going to land 3, 4, 5 punches in a row? Combination?
Jose Aldo fight. Have you seen the Jose Aldo fight?
Yeah, but you're talking.
Yeah, but that's.
He knocked him out with one punch in 11. Listen, he knocked him out with one punch in 11 seconds, bro. So how?
Yeah, but with no gloves.
That he's not got knockout power.
He hasn't. No one can claim that this guy's got knockout. This is a fallacy. This is something that's been made up again by the media hype to give Conor McGregor a chance that he's some sort of superhuman knockout artist. No, there's nothing to prove that. He's never wore boxing gloves and gone in a ring and knocked someone out. There's nothing to prove that. I mean, even Malignaggi said the guy ain't got no knockout power.
Yeah, of course Malignaggi's going to say that. Listen, no one's saying he's... Well, I suppose some people are saying he's a super knockout artist. What I'm saying is he does have enough power to knock somebody out.
Well, we don't know that.
Well, we do, because he knocked Jose Aldo out.
But it's different gloves, different size gloves, different type of fighting. The guy wasn't even he hasn't even got the sort of defense that Mayweather's got. So who says that he's got this supreme knockout power? I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I don't see there's any evidence for that.
Yeah, I to be fair, I think I'm very skeptical. I think it's a very, very different sport, wearing different gloves. Yeah, that Jose Aldo punch was a sort of punch of a lifetime. It was timed perfectly for an opponent who literally ran into it without any defense whatsoever. A guy like Floyd, even if McGregor is able to land on Floyd, for a start, he'll be doing it in a glove that's double the size. And Floyd is an expert at riding punches, and he's an expert at bending and leaning to minimise impacts and that sort of things. I just don't see. Floyd's got a very good chin, and when Floyd is hurt, let's say Conor does get Floyd hurt, Floyd is also a master at movement, at holding, at spoiling. He can make 30 seconds disappear before you have a chance to land anything on him again. But that's just my take on it. We may all be eating humble pie next week.
I tell you how McGregor wins. When Mayweather fought Ortiz, he had that little hug and he tried to touch gloves, and then Mayweather smacked him around the chin and knocked him out. Yeah. That is the only way that Conor McGregor is going to win that fight. Exactly how that happened.
100%. 100%. Guys, let's discuss the undercard briefly. The undercard is actually better than I initially suspected it would be. You got my boy Nathan Cleverly on there, Gervonta Davis. Anyone got any standouts? There's another good fight actually in the cruiserweight division. Andrew Tabiti, who's a Mayweather team prospect, versus Steve Cunningham.
Who's fighting now? Who's Tank Davis fighting now? Because it was supposed to be Rocky Martinez, weren't it? And
it's a guy called Fonseca. I think he's undefeated. He's only got one draw on his record and 20-odd wins.
What happened with the Martinez fight? I only heard, I don't know, today or yesterday, he wasn't fighting.
No clue, mate. There wasn't any sort of confirmation on that, so nothing really to report on that.
No, I haven't really got anything else on the undercard. I mean, the Gervonta Davis. I mean, I don't know who Fonseca is, to be completely honest. So it sounds like probably just a routine title defense, right? Anybody know Fonseca?
Not me.
He's never fought out of Costa Rica, so this is his first fight out of Costa Rica. 19 wins, 1 draw. I think it's just a name. Yeah. I think the highlight of the card really is the Cleverly Badou Jack. I think that's the fight I'm looking forward to the most.
Yeah, that's a good fight, that is. Who are you guys picking for that?
Well, for me,
I think Jack wins that. I think. Well, go on, Jay. Sorry.
I don't know. I think this is probably heart ruling head, but I'm going with Cleverly on this one. I'm on BG's side for this one.
We know who BG's picking. He's his brother from the Valleys. Is right.
The Welsh takeover.
I think Cleverly will stop him.
Oh, yeah, I'll take that one. Yeah.
Just rewatch that Derek Edwards fight. Imagine that Cleverly is a weight class above. Cleverly, a guy who's campaigned at cruiserweight before. Cleverly went the distance against Tony Bellew when even David Haye couldn't do that. He's back down from cruiserweight. He's bringing that power with him. And he's going in against a guy who got stopped at 168 by a gatekeeper.
Yeah, but come on, a one-legged David Haye couldn't go the different distance with Bellew. I mean, I just think Cleverly is gonna Cleverly fucking gives up his skills at times and just gets into ridiculous brawls that he don't need to get into. And I think with someone like Badou Jack, he could just get stopped to the body or something. Jack, I don't know. Jack impressed me in the De Gale fight. He showed a bit more to his game than I originally thought he had. I thought it was pretty basic to start with. And I think Jack will win it. I think Jack will win that.
I'll tell you one thing, Cleverly won't be getting stopped to the body anytime soon. That guy is one of the most durable fighters you will ever see. Real hard guy. Joking apart, you guys know I'm a huge Cleverly fan. I've made no secret about it. Joking apart, I do think Badou Jack will win the fight. And I think it's unfortunate. I think Cleverly's career, partly due to his own fault, has been managed very poorly. I think he's not with a boxing trainer, and we've seen him not be with a boxing trainer, and he's completely negated his skills. He used to be an above-average boxer. He's now a below-average boxer. He throws 100 punches around with his chin in the air, with no emphasis whatsoever on technique or power. It's just output. He can be involved in very, very entertaining scraps, but a guy like Badou Jack is a real underrated fighter. He's a real well-rounded fighter, and I suspect he will outpoint Clev 9 rounds to 3. And, you know, there won't be anyone happier than me if Cleverly does get the win. But I think this is a calculated selling of Cleverly's belt from his perspective.
Yeah.
I don't really get the impression that Nathan wants to have multiple defenses of his belt and try and unify titles. I think he wants to have 2 or 3 fights where he gets big paychecks.
Yeah, and who can blame him? You know, like I think this is, you know, somebody like Rigondeaux as well. I think it's you know, who can blame a guy that's, you know, fought his whole career, like what, 400 and odd amateur fights in the case of Rigo, and that probably made fucking very little money in that, and to come to the end of their career, of course, that's, you know, I'm pretty sure that's, you know, knowing they haven't got any more years of working in them. It's not like they can fight till they're 60, like most people work till they're 60, 65 or whatever, you know. So, you know, I don't begrudge a guy, you know, going for a payday at the end of his career, you know.
One other thing, Miguel Cotto's back this weekend.
Is he?
Is he?
Yeah.
Who's he fighting?
Against Kamagai.
Yeah.
That's a shit fight, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, guy, I forgot that.
And Ray Vargas is fighting as well, isn't he?
What terrible planning to clash the Cotto fight with the Mayweather fight.
I know, yeah. Maybe he just doesn't want it to be seen, though. Maybe he just wants to go under the radar for this one. See how he gets on first.
You know what, as well, and I was thinking this today, like, the fucking Canelo Triple G is only a couple of weeks away. And, like, this may, like, all, you know, all joking aside, fucking Mayweather McGregor has almost overshadowed that to the point where, like, a fight like Triple G Canelo, without this Mayweather fight, I think would have had a lot more coverage than it's had. It's like, hardly, like, when you go onto YouTube, it's fuck all about it anymore.
I think, do you know what? I think they've probably given up at this point. I think they've probably just thought, look, let's just get this out of the way and then we'll start pushing it, because there's no point.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll be overshadowed no matter what. And they just think, right, let's just leave everything. And then as soon as this is finished, just hit it and play on some sort of bad publicity that this fight the weekend could bring.
Yeah, but imagine a fight like that. I mean, it's not, you know, like, it's not a British title fight. Imagine a fight like Canelo Triple G fucking taking a back seat. You know, there's something wrong with that.
But that's the state of you know, this circus of a social media celebrity world that we live in, unfortunately.
Yeah.
If Irish Tom was here, he'd be going crazy with those points.
Yeah, definitely. All right, guys, so let's go with some final predictions then. I want who you're picking to win, and I want method of victory. Let's start with Jet. Floyd versus Conor and Cleverly versus Jack.
Floyd to win on points. Badu Jack to win on points as well.
Okay, I'll go next. I'm going to totally agree with Jet. Floyd to win on points. Badu Jack to win on points. And I do think from a gambling perspective, 11-4 or 3-1 Floyd Mayweather to win this fight on points is exceptional value. Let's go to Paul next. Paul, your 2 predictions on the fights?
I've already said I think Badu Jack will beat Cleverly. I think most likely on points. I actually think Floyd might stop him. You know, I think you know, if I was gonna bet on it, which I won't be betting on it, but if somebody says like, oh, here's a free bet, put it on whatever you want, I think the most likely outcome is that whether it be by, you know, Conor retiring on his stool, there's some suggestion that he may not have as much heart. Paulie Malignaggi's been saying he may not have as much heart as you'd hope. There is a little bit of evidence in the fact that he tapped out against Nate Diaz so quickly, although none of us can really say how it feels to be hitting a choke lock from a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt or whatever. You know, I think probably Floyd by stoppage is probably I know Floyd doesn't knock people out, but I just think the most likely outcome there is probably that, you know, with just volume and with just sort of like just totally fucking boxing his head off and bamboozling him completely, Floyd wins by stoppage. So yeah, I'm going to say Floyd by stoppage.
Surprised you didn't say McGregor there, mate.
Shut up.
Jay, over to you, mate.
I think obviously Mayweather will win about 6th round. I think I agree with Paul. It'll either be overwhelming amount of punches and the referee jumps in, or he'll just quit on his stall. As far as Badou Jack Cleverly, I will see it go to points. I'd like to think Cleverly could do enough to win on points, but I think with it being on a Mayweather card, being Badou Jack a Mayweather fighter, I can only see it going one way. So I will say, Matt, I'll say Cleverly wins, but Badou Jack gets the decision. If that makes any sense.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I think that's definitely going to be fight of the weekend, hopefully. And hopefully, if Cleverly does get the upset and the journey continues, that would be quite a story. Definitely.
Oh, hold on. Does anybody know if Tony Weeks is the referee for either of these fights?
No, Robert Bird is the main event, and I don't know the Cleverly Jack one. I'm not sure.
So I'd like to make a stipulation in my prediction. If Tony Weeks is the referee for the Badou Jack Cleverly fight, then my prediction is that Tony Weeks stops the fight before a punch has been landed.
And McGregor to win on the sly.
McGregor to win by devastating 2-second knockout on the down low. There you go.
Interesting. Right, guys. Let me. That's the end of our agenda for tonight. Let me do a quick run through the panel and see if anyone else has got anything else they'd like to throw in before we call it a night. Jay?
No, I'm all good.
Paul?
No.
Yeah.
I'd just like to say Paul got taken absolutely to the butchers tonight.
Once again.
You had a bad night. It's fine.
Brutal. I'll tell you what. People are saying, Tom, you should kick Paul off the podcast if McGregor loses. I'm not so worried about that. I'm more thinking I'm going to have to kick him off the podcast if McGregor wins, because it's going to be very hard for the three of us to. We don't look him in the eye, but it's going to be very hard for the three of us to look him in the eye. If that does happen.
It's going to be like the Sam Eggington win when we all picked Frankie Gavin. Oh no!
Still hurts. Yeah. Still hurts.
I've got
right,
a reputation for it, you see, picking the underdog and winning. You all know this, so I don't know why you ever.
But I think this pick will be as wrong as Sherry picking Glowacki. I think this will be just as bad.
What, my pick's going to be wrong? So you mean Floyd's not going to win?
No, McGregor. Oh, just kidding.
There we go. Guys, we'll be back next Wednesday to, of course, discuss the aftermath of Floyd Conor. We'll be discussing another devastating Nathan Cleverly shoulder KO. We'll be discussing, was it a dive or did Conor legit knock out Floyd? It's gonna be good. Thanks for watching as always. Please do hit the thumbs up button on this video. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Please check out Jet's channel, which is the Boxing Discussions channel. And as always, guys, thanks for spending your evenings with us, your Wednesday evening with us, and thanks to all the panel for their time. So good evening, guys.
Ciao.
Buenas noches.
Happy Wednesday for Irish Tom.